What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid, more specifically their upcoming Q3 earnings and what Lucid needs to say in order for it to be considered a success or not. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, in case you do not know, their earnings is slated for November the 7th. Currently, negative 31 cents is that earnings per share estimate done by analysts, and 205.18 million is their revenue. In my opinion, I think analysts are setting Lucid up to fail a little bit, only because Lucid recently put out a 8K saying that on the high end for Q3, their revenue is going to be roughly around 200 mil. So very low considering previously it was 293, the consensus from Wall Street. So very big miss on that. But still, now the fact that Lucid stated high end of 200 and analysts are still expecting 205, I think they're kind of setting Lucid up to fail a little bit. But beside the point, over the last 90 days, there's been 0 positive and 2 negative revisions to the earnings per share. So all these numbers, on a side note, could change up until their earnings. So I'll give you constant updates, but at the time of doing this video, this is what it's sitting at. Lucid, I think, is a very interesting case because everyone knows that Lucid burns through a lot of money. Not good at all. You have a lot of people out there saying that dilution is good for Lucid. It's necessary. It is not good. So I just wanted to clear the air. It is necessary for Lucid to continue operations and grow at the rate that they are estimating, but it is not good. So just kind of be aware of that. But beside the point, like the point I was getting at is expectations for Lucid are rather low. So if they do miss, for instance, on earnings per share revenue, I think Wall Street might give them a pass, as what has happened in the past. But generally, what they look for from Lucid is future guidance. And one thing that we can do is look at Tesla. So Tesla surprisingly did miss on their revenue, but one thing that they did do is they gave amazing future guidance. And the difference between Tesla and Lucid is the fact that Tesla actually says numbers. They're able to predict, or at least give a good estimate on what they predict for deliveries and just generally like the future. Even obviously they stated first half of 2025 for more affordable models. That's something that Lucid generally doesn't do. And Lucid is always very vague with their wording. They kind of talk on technology and stuff like that, but they don't really give much for investors to hang on to. And that's actually one of the biggest fails of Lucid over the last several earnings, is that their future guidance has been gray. People wanted to hear about the Gravity. They didn't say jack all about the Gravity, other than it's coming late 2024. That is it. So in order for Lucid to be a success, they need to really, from now until November, put all their heads together and think on actual numbers. Because even if us retail, our questions don't ask like exactly how many deliveries are you planning for the Gravity, or even production numbers in the foreseeable future, like they probably wouldn't ask or answer that question. But if an analyst says, hey, what is your expected like future revenue associated to the Gravity, if Lucid doesn't answer that, that is going to be a big flop. And same goes for that kind of mid-size SUV. Clearly that's going to be the big deal for Lucid. Gravity is going to gain the momentum and the hype for the SUV, and then that mid-size is going to be kind of the finisher for the most part. So long story short, Lucid, even though a lot of people think that it's down and out, it could still have pretty good earnings, similar to Tesla, which went up roughly around 25% plus over like a 2-day span. Like Lucid could do that, but it will all come back onto Peter and what he says for the future. And one thing on a side note that Tesla also did very well is they gave a very positive surprise for the energy storage revenue, right? So that is something that Lucid early on, especially with their technology, they have the ability to really kick ass in that field. But one thing that they recently disclosed, I think it was 2 earnings ago, or it might have been last earnings, they stated that they're not going to be pursuing ESS. My heart took a massive beat for that. And I was really disappointed the fact that Peter stated that, because I get it. Maybe at that time, the infrastructure in Saudi Arabia wasn't really up to par. So maybe Lucid just didn't want to pursue that, only because maybe Saudi Arabia wasn't really in on it or didn't really want to push it. But ultimately now things have changed. So Lucid really needs to get on top of the bandwagon. If not, this is going to be another field that Tesla does dominate. And then Lucid, even though they have the best technology, will lag. So Lucid needs to come on and say, hey, we have tons of demand in the market and we just need to produce, or they need to kind of give investors hope. And that's one thing that Tesla did, again, very, very well. And even myself, I bought Tesla because of their earnings and because there's a lot of good high expectations. So I think Peter, what he does sometimes a little bit too much is he runs his mouth for the most part. And I'm pretty sure we can all know that. Like, it's good. It's good the fact that Peter runs his mouth against Elon, but you have to back it. You can't just run your mouth and ultimately flop. Like, that is the most embarrassing thing to have in any regard. So the fact that Lucid is now saying that Tesla's robo-taxis won't be come to fruition until, let's say, 2030, if Lucid doesn't come out with that, because the last thing that he's given an update on was in 2021, and he said that robo-taxis were roughly around 10 years away. And with the new NVIDIA chip that is supposedly in the Gravity, that is supposed to put level 3 autonomous driving in Lucid vehicles, or the Gravity going forward. So I think in general, Lucid, like I said, needs to really talk on what the market wants to hear, and that is true numbers. And not only that, they want to hear that you have so much demand that you can't keep up with production. Because if you think about it, with AMP1 right now, their capacity is 90,000, 5,000 currently with AMP2, which will be roughly 150 in 2026. Logically, they want to hear like, hey, we can produce like 80,000 like in 2025. I know they're not going to say that, but that's the type of like optimism that the market wants to hear. So long story short, Lucid does have an opportunity to really hit a home run with their earnings, but it will all come back onto Peter. So what is your thoughts on, for instance, their upcoming Q3 earnings? What do you think Peter is going to state for the Gravity? Are they going to give a actual definitive date? In the last podcast, he said that, hey, there's 10 weeks left in 2024. It's coming. Like, do you think they're going to actually say a true date on when the Gravity is going to come out? And do you think the market is going to like it? And do you think, on a side note, they're going to give actual true numbers for the Gravity, or even Air guide for the future, let's say 2025? Do you think they're going to do all that? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend thus far. 2 things. Take advantage of this because it gives you 8 free shares. Obviously, free stuff is good, so take advantage of this. Each stock is valued up to $2,000, so that's a kick-ass deal. And then I did launch memberships with this YouTube channel, so if you like the channel, want to support the growth, you can definitely do so through the memberships. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.